Hey, welcome back, everybody. Sorry about that. We're on chapter 15, A Copper Sun by Sharon Draper. The program that I'm using only gives me about 15 minutes to talk and record, and we ended up going over time. So go ahead and finish chapter 15 with this one, so we'll have a little more discussion at the end of this one. So we're on page 59. If you can follow the PDF, or I'm not sure how they lined up in the actual story, but if you're listening to this is right after we had no one spoke to the master or his son. So Polly and Amari have just made it to Derbyshire Farms. And we've met Noah, one of the slaves, uh, Mr. Derby, Percival Derby, and his son Clay. Mr. Derby ignored the slaves and ordered Noah to turn to the right. They continued down a rutted lane, then stopped in front of a small shack made of wood. Polly noticed several other similar huts in the area, but she had no time to wonder about them, because just then Mr. Derby ordered them out of the wagon. Polly nodded and climbed stiffly down. She motioned to the African girl to do the same. Mr. Derby pointed to the shack. Here's where you will live. This slave is your responsibility for now. I can't spare any field hands to break in a new African. And I certainly won't have anyone in my household doing such a task. But Polly looked at him with a surprised frown on her face and started to object. Then she suddenly realized with dismay what he meant. She was not to be installed in this household, where she could observe and absorb fine living, but would be forced to live with this slave girl instead. How humiliating. I could be of great help to you, sir, as part of your household staff, she offered. This is how you will assist me, Mr. Derby replied, his face showing impatience. I need for her to act like a human instead of a monkey. Do you think you can tame a savage? Yes, sir, I can do anything I put my mind to, Polly replied haughtily, but she hated the thought that she would have to deal with the black girl on a regular basis. Mr. Derby looked at Polly carefully. His voice was like a sharp stone. Don't underestimate me, child. I will not tolerate insubordination. Do I make myself clear? What was clear to Polly was that Mr. Derby was used to having his way. I'm grateful for the opportunity, sir, Polly said with as much meekness as she could muster. I will serve you well. Mr. Derby folded his arms across his chest, then continued. Your job is to teach her a little of the king's English, to teach her how civilized people live and act, and most importantly, to teach her absolute obedience. She belongs to my son, and when he needs her, it is your job to make sure she is delivered to him. Understood? Yes, sir, Polly said quietly. Clay stood behind his father, chewing on a blade of grass, grinning. Both of you are to assist Tina in not getting her way. I demand perfection. I expect my servants to be useful and occupied at every moment of the day. In addition, I will not tolerate the questioning of any orders I give, ever. Teeny, sir? Polly asked, a frightened question mark in her voice. Do you have a problem with any of this, young lady? Because I can take you right back to where I found you, working for common scum like Jeremy Cotton as a scullery maid. I've given you a home, a job, and an opportunity to better your life, much more than you deserve. Now get on with you before I change my mind. Mr. Derby ordered Noah to take the wagon back to the main house. He motioned to Clay, and the two walked away. Polly breathed a sigh of relief as they left. The slave girl did the same, almost at the same moment. They looked at each other attentively, but neither girl smiled. So as we finish up this really short, really short part of 15 part 2, chapter 15 part 2, we really get to see the personality of Mr. Derby and Clay. These are not good people at all in any stretch of the imagination. You may be wondering to yourself, were any slave masters good people? I would hazard a guess to say no, but there were different levels to how people treated their slaves. However, they were still slaves. They were still treated like property, and they were still treated bad by people. But these two are not good individuals at all. We don't have any sympathy for Mr. Derby or Clay. Polly, as we can see, she was also treated very poorly by the Derbys. Not as badly as Amari, but still treated pretty bad. A lot of that is classism. When you are poor, a lot of times, even in today's society, you're looked down a little bit. And Polly, even though she's white, she is a woman, and women didn't have rights at this time, and she's poor. She's an orphan. If you guys noticed back before when they were talking about her family dying, her parents dying, Derby and Clay didn't really have any sympathy. Like, it was just like, oh, her parents died, and then they kept rolling, like, whatever. No, neither one of them thought to say, yo, I'm sorry that your parents died or anything like that. And again, women didn't have rights, and she's poor, so they're not going to care about her in much sense at all. So we finally get to see now that Amari's going to be living her life on the Derbyshire farms. We know that she's going to be a plaything for Clay. That's been established before earlier in the chapter. She has a bleak life ahead of her, definitely. And we're getting all this from Polly. And as we can tell, Polly she has been living in this slave society where you look down on Africans, you have special stereotypes about Africans and black people, and she looks down on them a lot. So over the course of the story, we'll see if that changed. Will that change? Will that not change? We don't know. But you can see she basically is living with the slaves now. And sometimes when those type of things happen, other white people will look down on poor white people who had to live around slaves or be around slaves. Like they weren't respected at all. And that's why she was kind of like, oh my goodness, like I have to live with them, and she wants to be in the house with the other white people. And it was more of a status thing for her as an indentured servant. So that's kind of what's going on with this chapter. We'll finish off here. It was a really quick one. Sorry about that. There may be a couple other really long chapters, but we'll have to split up things like that. But as of now, we'll be going to the last chapter in Polly's perception or perspective, for part 2. And we'll do that shortly. So thanks for reading. Thanks for staying with us. Appreciate you. See you on the next one.